Okay, so a quick recap for that. This is Inequality in the Environment, focusing on coffee, 9 days in Costa Rica, doing all of these cool things, which we will talk about more in our photos.
And if I can just jump in a little bit to say a couple more things about both where we're coming from and the kinds of things we're thinking through. So I'm a philosophy professor. Danny is a sociology professor, and so we conceive of this as a very interdisciplinary kind of course and experience. And some of the inequities that we'll be looking at, in addition to the environmental both benefits and drawbacks to coffee production, tend to look at some of the ways in which social inequities and inequalities are replicated on this issue. So the fact that that so much of the labor is done by migrants, and that most of the coffee harvesting is done by women, but most of the means of production are owned by men. So this is part of the reason for looking at meeting with labor and gender rights organizations and thinking about the ways in which all of these issues intersect, again, on the social, political, ethical level. And in addition, with the cloud forest, that last part, we're looking at ziplining this time, which if that scares you, you don't have to do it. But if that sounds fun to you, we're going to try to make that an option for the trip this time too.
And that just reminds me, we don't have on this slide the price of the trip. It's going to be around $1,500 for this trip. Where it may be a little bit lower. We're making some negotiations, but we expect it'll be probably right around $1,500. Okay, and we want you to learn lots of really cool stuff like this. Go ahead, Kate.
Right. So I'll just go through these quickly. You can read them yourselves, but also just go through them, identify the intersectional impacts of racism, sexism, ableism, classism, nationalism, colonialism, and anthropocentrism. If you don't know what all those mean, don't worry about it. We'll go through it in the trip, on the environment and human health. We'll identify theoretical explanations for environmental problems and also be looking at strategies for change. So looking really at on the ground, how are people thinking about what needs to change? How can we go about that? Analyze the notions of responsible citizenship in both local and global communities. So those who feel like there's some change that's needed, what responsibilities do people in Costa Rica have? What responsibilities do we have coming from the United States in terms of our patterns of consumption of coffee, for instance? And then engage in discussions about an evaluation of environmental policy and the roles of multinational corporations and organizations. So we'll be thinking about, again, what we see on the ground and then how that has an impact worldwide, given that Costa Rica is such an interesting and leading producer and exporter of coffee, given also that so much of the really good coffee goes out of the country. And so the really great stuff, the high priced, is the stuff that most of the rest of the world drinks and not necessarily what Costa Ricans drink themselves. And so there are some really interesting issues that of course deserve analysis in terms of that.
Right. And you have lots of opportunities to drink coffee, although if you're not a coffee drinker, you don't have to, again, but you we'll talk to coffee producers and roasters and go to their farms and all that kind of cool stuff. So let's show you some pictures of the way that it worked out. So this is the crew that went with us the first time. Oh, and it's just playing automatically. So there's the other one. We'll just go. It's fine. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Look, I'll stop there, hopefully. So when we went, it was actually a really early flight. So this is our crew. It was, I don't know, ass o'clock. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. It was really early. I don't know that it's always going to be that early, but this one was, which created a little bit of a bonding moment because we had to get to the flight so early. So we will all fly together is the idea. If anybody has any worries about flights, we go together and get through all of the customs and everything together at immigration.
We had several people last time who had never been on a flight ever. And so if that's at all your circumstance, don't worry, we're happy to walk you through not only the challenges of flying these days, but then flying internationally. We will be there for you for all of that. So don't hesitate to talk to us about that if you have any questions.
And the accommodations are largely group accommodations. So this is the place where we stayed last time. We're going to be staying at a different place. We no longer have access to this specific house, but it's going to be very similar. So likely to have bunk beds, likely to have group sort of shared accommodations. but hopefully enough space for students to have a little bit of their own space, little pockets of privacy here and there.
And we
We
try
will
to
have,
build that in as well to giving you some downtime, because for some people that can be a lot. So we do try to build in times for you to just be able to sort of take off on your own for a little bit.
and we will have meals together. So we'll have communal meals in the house, usually breakfast and dinner. Oftentimes lunch will be out, like picnic lunches, and we'll see how that works out. But the communal dinners, if you can see, he's in the shadow, the guy on the right in the blue shirt. This is our guide. This is Tomas, and he always starts the meal with a discussion about what we're eating and the process of eating for Costa Ricans. So it's a sort of family style process, and he gives us a little bit of cultural immersion and talks about how things are done. He also provides at the very beginning a sort of crash course in Costa Rican culture, including a little bit of vocabulary, how to kind of what words mean, how to get along, a little bit of the sort of worldview of Costa Ricans, which is something that we'll talk about in our discussions and comparing like the worldviews of US Americans versus Costa Ricans and how we understand our place in the world and how we interact with each other. The food was really great. It's fantastic.
So
Hopefully we'll have the same cook who was with us last time, and she's fantastic. So if there are special food restrictions, food allergies, we already have, she will make vegetarian options for whatever the meal is. And if there are special food restrictions, then we can accommodate those. So just have to let us know what they are. This is the whole crew again, just hanging out in front of the house. This was our very first meal together. So straight from the airport, we fly into stop it right now. We fly into San Jose, and then before we go up to the house, we'll have a meal together, just at a restaurant. And this is our kind of our first bonding experience. And we can't do this one because there's a video. That was the area, part of the cloud forest. So part of hiking into the cloud forest, looking and seeing what things are like near in our environment. We will likely go to a prominent university in Costa Rica, the UNA, the National University of Costa Rica. We'll spend time with their students, especially in the agronomy department. So in this picture, we're with some of the graduate students, and they take us on a tour of their farm area. So these are students who are learning about the practices of farming, including coffee farming. So we'll see their university farms, and they do a lot of research in these farms. So they have like this plot of land is getting one treatment and another plot of land gets another type of a treatment. So we'll see kind of what the research process is around the production of food, and particularly coffee. This was Xavier was our main graduate student host, and then we talked with the faculty. They made us coffee and they served us coffee, and we talked about coffee production and what that was like. One of the really big moments for students was this trip to a waterfall. So this woman here, that's Doña Elias, she is an incredible activist in Costa Rica, protecting waterways, talking in particular about the role of water. And she is quite elderly, but amazingly spry. So we're walking through this area with all of these waterfalls. She has a cane and she's just kicking it out of the park. It's pretty amazing. One of the other things that we're going to do is visit Starbucks's only farm. So Starbucks has locations all over the world, but they don't produce their own coffee beans. They contract with local farmers, except here in Costa Rica. So here in Costa Rica, they have a farm, and this is their farm. So we'll visit their coffee shop. We'll see their farming productions, and it gives us, this is again, their beautiful corporate landscaped formal farm. We will see what their farm is like and compare it to some of the family farms. So did you want to talk about Cafe Uralda's farm?
Sure. So this was it's a really interesting contrast where you go from multinational Starbucks to then as you saw we rode in that behind a tractor, getting a sense of how a small family farm that tries to concentrate on using very organic when possible, very few pesticides, etc., grows their coffee. So it's a really interesting contrast to see how those relate to one another. That's coffee right before it turns red. So we'll be there around the same time, so you'll get to see that. This was the biggest avocado we'd ever seen. It is that that size, grown right there on the farm. So got us a chance to sample that and then have some of their coffee as well.
And this was actually a gift from the farmers, just because we came and they were like, here, have a gift, this massively giant avocado. And one of the things that you'll learn, Costa Ricans in general are very generous and very warm and interested in talking about their experiences, and talking with us is a really fantastic way to connect. It was actually at Cafe Ruralda's farm also. This just was really pretty. We walked around their grounds, looked at the scenery, lots of stuff in the nature areas and natural areas.
So we have, I want us to, we've got lots more to share, but I'm also noticing that it's 11:17 and some people might have questions, or it might be worth pausing for just a moment to see if anybody has any. If not, we can keep going and talking, but this is also a really good time that if anybody does have questions, and it can be about what you've seen, or it can be about something completely different, to just see if anybody has things that they'd like to ask us. So go ahead and unmute if you do, or do the hand raise or whatever. And if not, we'll keep talking, but.
Okay, well, we'll keep talking, but please do put it in the chat or raise your hand or whatever else. So this was a meeting that we had with the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, Doña Lorena, who had just shared a wealth of her experience working in this idea of foreign affairs and in cultural development and economic development. Lots of students had a really great opportunity talking with her and asking her questions here. Lots of nature areas. So we see lots of waterfalls, and then lots of time on the bus. So in truth, you know, we travel around a lot. We spend time on the bus together. We'll do things like spend time in San Jose, the big city, walking around, having coffee, eating lychees, drinking coconut out of a coconut. We also visited the United Nations University for Peace. We're not sure if we're going to visit again because it's very far out of the way. It's a whole day just to get to here. So, but we did have an opportunity to talk to a university whose mandate is about educating citizens in terms to make global social change for peace. And so that was a kind of exciting experience, hanging out at the University for Peace. There are beautiful grounds here. They always have this blue, this chalkboard where they're talking about which sustainable development goal you're going to work on that year. Real quick, in the blue shirt, this is Tomas, our host. He is such a quirky guy. So very frequently we'll be on the bus and he'll be like, there's a fruit tree on the side of the road. He's like, oh, stop. And I'm gonna jump off the bus and then grab some fruit for dinner that night. He also has this thing where he's like, I'm gonna stop at the grocery store, just one quick minute. So we had a lot of stops at the grocery store. He's such a character. It's a really great time. Did you want to talk about Laguna Hule?
Sure. So in talking to all of the students afterwards, Laguna Ule was one of the most transformative, some said magical experience that they had had. We walked down to the lagoon. It's just a protected, beautiful area. We're past the photo now, but that was what you saw. It does require, and for anybody for whom this is an accessibility issue, please don't hesitate to tell us because we will make accommodations and adjustments. But it is a good reminder that if that is something that you are able and interested in doing, you should bring good shoes because we will, as you can see from some of the photos, do a good amount of hiking. And that is a hike that, although it's a little bit rigorous, is so worth it. So many of the students absolutely said that was their favorite thing that we did.
Yeah, There's some stuff in the chat. There was something about vegetarianism that is absolutely not a problem.
I responded. Yeah.
Yeah, many of us are also vegetarians.
Yeah.
So, I want to pause here on Crocodile Bridge. Loved Crocodile Bridge. This is pretty fantastic. Walking across this huge bridge where you look down and you just see a gazillion crocodiles. We'll also spend time at the beach. Students loved spending time at the beach. This was a fun day, a relaxing day where we could swim and we could play. We had a picnic. It was beautiful and fun and relaxing, especially after a lot of thinking through things. We'll have a closing sort of evening where we can just play. So this was with students from the university, and we had dinner together and just played. It was just fun. It was a good way to kind of close. Oh, I don't know what's happening with this. That was our barbecue, I guess.
Yeah, that was the last night when we had the dinner.
Yep. And is that it?
Yep, I think that should be it.
I think that might be it.
I think there's a picture of a coffee mug or something at the end, but that should be about it.
I don't know how to PowerPoint is what's happening, so I think that's all. There, look.
Yeah.
Coffee mug. Oh my gosh. Why is this technology so difficult? All right, so I think, is that the end of our time?
Yeah. Well, we've got a few more minutes, so let's just open it up and see if anybody's got questions. And again, there are no stupid questions. There's